Here we go. Let's go live. A Merry Christmas Eve to everybody out there. Welcome back to Weather Center Nazario. Today, I wanted to come on here for another brief live stream because I couldn't leave the YouTube channel out to dry without welcoming Merry Christmas or wishing you all a Merry Christmas just as we get ready to wander into the holiday. I also have some really exciting stuff to discuss with you guys that have happened not only over the last 12, 15 hours, but some stuff I uncovered to kind of gift wrap for you guys as we roll into Christmas tonight. First and foremost, before we get started, I'm not too sure if she's going to be watching, but a big shout out to Natalia. Yesterday, I was out at SeaWorld. We were at the Sharks Underwater Grill, and she immediately recognized who I was, and boy, that was an awesome moment. She walked up, Nazario, right? And we got a picture together, got to have a short conversation. It was pretty cool. So it was shout out to Natalia. If you're out there or going to be tuning into this at one point in time, definitely follow my Instagram or my TikTok or both. I'd love to see the picture. I'd love to chat it up sometime. So I thought that was pretty neat. But also, guys, I wanted to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. Definitely wanted to express that right out of the gate. You guys are truly a big gift to this YouTube channel, a big gift to myself and my family. It goes without saying, without you guys, there would be no community, there would be no Weather Center Nazario, there'd be no channel, and it has been marvelous over the last few months, and it's so humbling and exciting to ring in the Christmas holiday now with all of you guys in my corner. It's been a beautiful last 4 to 5 months since we started with our Hurricane Idalia coverage, walked through the end of the hurricane season together, and we're now looking at the new year together and seeing what's exactly on the horizon, and I hope to bring you guys as wonderful, exciting, accurate, safe, reliable weather information every step of the way for the next 365 days we spend together, not only on this channel, but amongst the community as a collective unit, because that's what we are. We're a community, we're a collective unit working together to stay ahead of the bad stuff and communicate the good stuff. So this is only caffeine. It's not an alcoholic beverage just yet, but I cheers to every single one of you guys out there, to your families, to your loved ones. Please enjoy the holiday to the best of your ability. If you're facing the significant weather activity, whether it be in the southern plains or up where we have blizzard conditions currently over the Dakotas, the central plains, the Midwest, please be safe. Ride out the storm safe and sound in your homes. Refrain from going outside, and just continue to enjoy the festivities to the best of your ability, despite what's going on out there. Carolyn, Merry Christmas Eve to you as well. Thank you so much. Linda, Merry Christmas. Malachi, welcome in. Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas. Supercharas, Ethan's Life. Oh, you have a present for me, Ethan? It's good to see you guys. So first and foremost, we're going to get started with a very quick update, and I promise this time I will make it quick. I always say that, and then we spend like 45 minutes talking about the same thing for a while. We're looking at our infrared satellite imagery, and as I've already alluded to, right in through here we have blizzard conditions and a potential winter storm warning expansion that we're expecting throughout South Dakota, Nebraska. I would not be surprised if they're still seeing lots of good snowfall in Wyoming and Colorado, seeing some in North Dakota, spanning into Minnesota as well, and getting into the Great Lakes, where you can already see some good lake effect action that's taking place, spewing out of there into the Midwest and the Northeast United States. Down over the south, you can see our secondary low system really beginning to blossom. Got a lot of good thunderstorm activity over the Gulf of Mexico, preparing to make its way inland on eastern Texas, Louisiana. Parts of Mississippi are probably going to see it as well, and this is also just going to continue to span further eastward into our neck of the woods down here in the southeast and especially central Florida. And before you know it, we have another storm system already moving in to the Pacific Northwest. We have a very strong jet max, it looks like, cutting across Oregon, parts of Northern California, Nevada, getting ready to move through the Snake River Valley in Idaho, Four Corners, Intermountain west of Montana, Wyoming, and Colorado. So it's going to be back-to-back systems, still have a very weak low spin that's helping to further induce a little bit of that lake effect stuff that we're seeing over the Midwest. Very weak spin that's probably going to be eaten alive by this system as it continues to deepen, become even more of a stronger baroclinic system. You can just see the jets screaming up like this. We have strong winds on both sides of this system that's helping to pump cold air down, and we're continuing to see that warm air advection surging up from the south, which is why it's fairly mild down here for us in Florida. Not excited about that. In fact, Ethan and I were talking about that earlier. He shared a picture with me that showed we were at freezing conditions this time 365 days ago last year for Christmas Eve, and now it's a night and day difference. Literally, it's probably warm and kind of muggy outside. Maybe, relatively warm. We're not talking summertime conditions, but, as we continue to see that advection and all this cloud cover spewing across the southeast and the Gulf, it's naturally going to raise our temperatures a little bit. So that's what we have going on right now. We have lots of WWAs, watches, warnings, advisories, both within this quadrant of the United States, the north central portion, if you will, and then down over the southeast. I expect we're going to continue to see National Weather Service updates as this screams off to the east and eventually the east-northeast. This is what I wanted to talk about today, though. However, I just had a conversation with one of you guys on Instagram, and we were talking Christmas, New Year's, and then we mentioned the hurricane season, and I thought I'd come in here and take a look at a couple things, and I was kind of, I won't say alarmed, but I was definitely very, very, kind of took notice immediately when I noticed a couple of things. So check this out. This is our 7-day change in terms of our sea surface temp anomaly. And look at how our eastern Pacific is markedly cooling off, particularly in our El Nino 1 and 2 quadrant just off the coastline of South America. That's not really a good sign. I'm going to tell you the truth, and I'm not going to wander into hype territory. It's Christmas Eve. We're not going to hype bad weather or anything like that. I just wanted to bring some awareness to this before we go full force into the holiday season tonight and throughout the new year and whatnot. This I thought was very particular. This was very interesting. Right in through here where you see those shades of blue, that is the change over a week. So what's happening here is we're already starting to see a pretty decent cooling in our El Nino region, and it's very interesting to see that we definitely have it happening in ENSO 1 and 2, and the rest of our regions, according to our ENSO analysis data, have not started to decrease in their energy, but our anomaly charts are starting to show that we're cooling. And what's crazy is it looks like the Gulf of Mexico, a little bit of the MDR, and the Caribbean especially are warming. They've warmed about a degree in the last 7 days. So with that being said, let's take a look at this chart right here. This is our ENSO index for region 1 and 2. And truthfully, I just made a TikTok video, which I'm not too sure why TikTok blasted me with this misinformation error. They actually removed my video and said, we do not accept or, approve of misinformation that can cause significant harms to society, persons, places, or property. And I'm sitting here thinking, it's a video on next hurricane season. Where's the misinformation? What are you talking about? Needless to say, I appealed it and they put it back up, thankfully. But check this out. I just put that video out a couple days ago, and look at how we saw this sharp decrease in our ENSO oscillation, or our ENSO energy index, if you will, in 1 and 2 between Thanksgiving and the beginning of December. We saw a bit of an increase, but now look at how sharply we are dropping. We're almost to a neutral point already in the first region of our El Nino, or our Nino sectors, if you will. We're already approaching that neutral threshold. Dang, I almost had a perfect line. We're almost approaching that neutral threshold as of 6 Zulu, December 24th. So that makes me wonder if this is the trend, if we're going to start to see this domino effect between 1 and 2, then 3 and 4, then 4, and so on and so forth. Because that definitely concerns me. It's our small quadrant of our Nino, regions, as they call it. I wish I had better terminology for it, but they break them up into graphical quadrants or regions where we analyze specific pieces of how our oscillating pattern looks in the Pacific. And I was very, very interested and intrigued to see that's a tremendous drop. That's not a gradual drop. That is like El Nino, for all intents and purposes, is collapsing, at least in that one region so far. So I'm definitely going to be monitoring this as we go through New Year's and get through January, because if we start seeing the Ethan's Life, Take It Easy, Malachi, when you come back, when you can come back, we'll be here. Not going to be too long of a live stream, but we're going to keep talking about this for at least a few more minutes. But that is a marked decrease. You know, a gradual decrease would be something like this. And even that's kind of a more, a more dramatic decrease. I was anticipating, based on what our climate models are calling for, that we would see something like this happen over time, a decrease like that. But to see it go up and then crash, almost like the stock market, no pun intended, that's pretty intense. You look at this is November 26th. We were at an SOI of about, we'll say, 1.8, and within less than a month, approaching the month time, we've already dropped from 1.8 down to about 0.3. So that's a 1.5 difference, negative differential right there. And if you come over here, this is where it gets even more interesting. So this first chart here is what they're monitoring over the next, and this is why I made in my video, guys, that we'll need to watch not only next hurricane season, but thereafter. We had this very, very powerful, robust El Nino come in, and check this out. So if you look down at the bottom here, and I'm really glad I pulled this up. I think this is great information to talk about as we get into the new year, because this is going to change our weather. And I know there's a lot of videos out there. This weather pattern is going to change everything. This here will genuinely change everything. So check this out, guys. Before you get fixated on these lines, I want to introduce you to what's at the bottom. So at the bottom, we have SON, OND, NDJ, DJF, and so on and so forth. These are 3-month increments. So we'd have September, October, November, December, November, January, February, or November, December, January, and so on and so forth. But look closely at the bottom here. 2023, 2024, 2025. Check this out. Here's our neutral phase. And look at how we're going to drop into a neutral weak La Nina just in time for the hurricane season. May, June, July, August, September, we are in that neutral phase according to our consolidation in the Nino region 3 and 4, where it matters the most for our hurricanes and our tropical Atlantic. And notice how there is no change. Guys, there is no change. So we definitely, and I'm getting chills thinking about this, we definitely might have a potential repeat of 2004 and 2005 coming very soon. And I say that with the utmost seriousness. I'm not hyping. I'm not trying to fearmonger. I'm not trying to cause any kind of stress right as we get ready for Christmas. But I discovered this and I've been analyzing it, and that's kind of why I broke live, you know? Like, yes, there was a Christmas message attached to this live video, but as you all who have been very familiar with this channel for the last few months, you know the only time I break in is when there's something I want to talk about that's kind of big, that's pressing. This shows we will continue to be in a neutral/weak La Nina all the way until potentially 2025's hurricane season. And what that means is if our sea surface temperatures stay hot, we could possibly, this is a huge theory, a huge internal theory. This is not something that's been speculated. But if our sea surface temperatures go up as hot as they did this year, or stay as warm as they are now and only continue to increase with this kind of an oscillation pattern coming, we could see hurricane season extend into October, November, preliminary December, and come early for that matter, May, like the Pacific side, June, July. Because if those waters are hot, the only reason we did not see stuff this year, and I always bring this up, I always bring Tropical Storm Arlene up. We had Tropical Storm Arlene on the very first day of the hurricane season. The only reason no one paid attention to it is because if you look at this, we were already in El Nino. We already had tremendous wind shear blowing that system to pieces, so it kind of was just a laughing stock. Everyone who saw it at first was like, why do we have a tropical storm already? But then because of El Nino and the unfavorable conditions that were in the Gulf, thanks to El Nino and the Caribbean for that matter, it didn't do anything. It didn't have a chance to execute. This here is very concerning in my personal opinion because of what we observed this year. We had a very, very active Atlantic in an El Nino pattern. We are now going to open up the entire Atlantic AOR to include the Gulf of Mexico, the entire Caribbean Sea, and the entire warm tropical Atlantic. all those quadrants, all those source regions are going to flip the sign and say open for business. And we could possibly be in a favorable Atlantic setup into 2025. This sentiment is echoed on other charts as well. If you look at this, we're expecting to continue all the way through to 2025 and still sort of remain in that weak La Nina to neutral phase. There is a gradual increase that maybe towards the back end of 25 will start to creep into a weak El Nino, but as we all know, it's not a very, sudden change. It's not a very sudden change that suddenly squashes the possibility of there being tropical cyclones. And if you want any further clarification on this, I'll zoom this in so you guys can get a better seeing of this. What this is here are the temperature anomalies and what our SSTs and SOIs are expected to be as we go all the way through to 2025. And check this out. So as we go through the next couple of months, we're going to rapidly see El Nino drop off. So you notice how as we go through into February, we're starting to see that decline, but then we rapidly drop off. And anywhere, when you get into right about here, 0.86 to 0.53, that still is technically considered a weak El Nino, but by now we're already approaching that neutral phase. Once you get out of a moderate or greater El Nino, that wind shear, the bad stuff that tropical cyclones, hate, despise, is for all intents and purposes going to wash away. And we already saw this year that the hot waters out there won the battle during a moderate to strong El Nino. So once we start approaching that neutral threshold just in time for April, May, June, 0.26, and then we are expected to be neutral as we roll into the hurricane season, May, June, July. Look at how we maintain that weak La Nina, if not neutral phase, all the way through to January, February, March of 2025. We're going to be in negative SST anomalies all the way straight through. And if you guys remember the last couple of live streams we did digesting a few of the research papers, it's proven that not only is this bad in terms of giving our tropical entities a favorable setup to develop, we also know what this does to our steering pattern. So we might not only have to watch for 2024, we might also have to do preliminary reports on just the next couple of years. And you can't make this up. You can't make this up. This is not forecast models. These are not computer generated. I mean, they are computer generated, but these are from official sources. I got this off of CPC's website right here. Where is it? This is their current historical outlook and what they've built in terms of most recently looking at all of our outlook probabilities and their own internal assessment of what's expected to happen. And here is the last piece of the puzzle. This is the consolidation that they have built themselves from Climate Prediction Center. Looks very similar to what I just showed you guys earlier, but I promise this is a different chart. This is their actual projection all the way through to January, February, March of 2025. And now remember, when you guys see this, anything right here, anytime the line crosses, there we go, I got a perfect line this time. Anytime these lines or this chart goes above that line, that's when we start to see the wind shear kick in. That's when we can start to anticipate we're going to have quadrants of the Atlantic more susceptible to negative environmental conditions for our tropical features. And if you notice, we're going to gradually climb up. If you can project this out, we're going to gradually climb up as we go through 2025. And now remember, this is already January, February, March, so this would be February, March, April, May, June, March, April, May, June, and we're still going to be in that neutral pattern as we begin the hurricane season of 2025. These are just data collected now from the past. No, this is projection of where we're going into the future. But technically what they're doing is, yes, they're taking data from climatology. They're also taking our most recent model data and their own internal recordings. I believe they have a briefing on their page too. At least they should. They usually have a briefing. Here we go. Let me open that up for you guys. I have not looked at this, but they always have a brief that they brief each other internally in their office. Let me bring it on over. I love looking at this stuff. So, as we know, we are in an El Nino environment, but check this out already. The tropical Pacific anomalies are consistent with El Nino. El Nino is expected to continue through the northern hemisphere winter with a transition to Enzo neutral favored during April-June 2024. 60% chance as we wander into the hurricane season, we will be in that neutral phase. These statements are updated once a month, second Thursday of each month, in association with the Enzo Diagnostics discussion, which can be found by clicking here. We're not going to click on that. We're just going to go through their own little briefing here and discuss it a little bit. Let's see. Let's go further in time so we can see when they have the discussion on what's coming. Let's see. So this is where we sit right now. September, October, November, we were at a 1.8 SOY, so we're definitely creeping into a very strong El Nino. And if you notice, this is what also has me concerned, because look at how long we were in a neutral to a La Nina between 2020, 21, and then 22. And then finally, we got into a very strong El Nino. And you guys can kind of put the puzzle pieces together looking at just this table of contents right here. If you look, it's the weaker oscillations that tend to stick around for quite some time. Look at how long we were neutral between 12 and 14 before we finally crept into a decent El Nino. Then notice how it surged and then very quickly crashed back down again. And then we were stuck in a La Nina until, again, it surged a little bit. And then we really went down. 2019, from the hurricane season in 2019 up until the periphery of the beginning of this year, we were in a neutral to La Nina pattern. So if you're putting the puzzle pieces together here, El Nino is a very, very quick kind of phase. El Nino only sustains itself for so long. So that means we could possibly be in a La Nina to neutral oscillation for about 2 years, we'll say. We'll do a preliminary average of about 2 years. So that means we also have to start looking ahead. Not literally, guys, but we also have to start thinking ahead that we're going to be in for a very active tropical season between next year and all the way into possibly 2026 because of the way things are going. Here they have their own Outlook page right here. As a matter of fact, we can pull up. So here we go again. They're projecting as we get into the heart of hurricane season, we are more than likely going to be in an Enzo neutral or an Enzo La Nina or a cold Enzo phase as we go through the peak. El Nino is going to dissipate and wash out. I know that there's still red bars here, but essentially what that's saying is this is their own forecast. Official NOAA CPC Enzo probabilities, this is their own forecast. So where you see these still red bars, that doesn't mean that there's going to be some El Nino out there. What they're saying is the probability of still being in an El Nino at that point in time is very low. We're looking at between 5 to 10% is what they're thinking is the probability we'll be in an El Nino. As we open up to the next hurricane season, we're looking at neutral being the name of the game, and then they're actually starting to bring up the favorability or their forecasted risk of being in a La Nina above 40%, kind of getting close to the 45 percentile where it matters the most. So what the key takeaway is on this bar graph, especially in terms of what the hurricane season looks like, we're going to go from nope to yep, big time. We're going to go from a big old red X here to a big old green check mark in terms of what Mother Nature is concerned that, yep, so we can check that box, which is probably why Tropical Storm, whatever that, I always forget what Nomad Cat for, Tropical Storm Forecast or Tropical Storm Risk, there we go, yeah, TSR, Tropical Storm Risk, why they're already putting out another huge above average kind of season for us. The majority of models indicate El Nino will persist through April-June 2024 and then transition at its peak November to January. All models suggest a moderate to strong El Nino. And then as you can see, we're still moving into that favorable setup. There's the crash and burn of El Nino with a number of our new line charts or a number of our new model. This is going to be, believe it or not, climatology ensemble members. So you know how we have our ensembles for the Euro, we have our GFS ensembles where they're little individual members showing you the most likely outcome in terms of what that member is thinking, and then the average comes in as the model agreement, and so on and so forth. These are going to be your climate forecasting system ensembles here. And we have maybe 3 members, 1, 2, 3, that think we'll still be in slightly a little weak El Nino. But if you look, 95, I'll say, percent of our ensemble members think we're actually going to be approaching a strong La Nina, but the average percentile, the general thinking is we'll be in a weak La Nina to a neutral phase. So I wanted to pass this along because I thought this was extremely, extremely interesting to find this, guys. And here we go. This is going to be the most recent update for what the rest of the winter time is going to look like. You could see that we have an above wet percentile here down in the southeast up the eastern seaboard, which is very reminiscent of what we've already been seeing. We have also been seeing some cutoff entities moving through SoCal, Central California, the Four Corners, which is exactly what we just briefed a little bit ago. So we also have that taking shape. So El Nino is definitely kicking. It's kicking doors down, taking names, and we're seeing these systems continue to translate through the southern tier. And before we get ready to wrap up this live stream for folks who are tuning in after the fact, I'm going to pull up this last document, this research paper that we discovered on this channel a while ago. These are the trends of where our hurricanes and tropical systems typically landfall majority of the time during a neutral season. In fact, these are all tracks of hurricanes that specifically hit Florida, the Bahamas, and the rest of the southeast United States during a neutral Enzo phase. And then if I scroll down a little bit, these are the hurricanes that made landfall during a cold season or a La Nina. This is going to be where we typically see a lot of our tropical cyclone formation during the Enzo neutral pattern that we were just talking about. So I will probably be printing this out, to tell you the truth, guys. That's how serious I'm taking this. I'm probably going to blow this image up and print it out for my records whenever it comes time to start forecasting for the next hurricane season. And I will go as far as to start drawing preliminary predictions in terms of where we will likely see a lot of activity. And what's concerning about this is, for 2023 particularly, a lot of these values here were out here. And we had a lot of the systems transitioning up and out. The problem with that is, I'll clear this and I'll once again draw this in here. If we switch to this new pattern that everything is screaming in our face as we will, and we take most of our formation and put it into the Caribbean, just in the Western Atlantic, the Gulf of Mexico, and we draw this exact same line, notice what that does to our pattern. Notice what that does to our projected landfall amounts. I do have a question. Will we see beautiful hurricane satellite during the season? Oh, heck yeah. I honestly think, in comparison to this year, once we get rid of a lot of that El Nino wind shear, we're going to have a lot more of those very symmetrical, dare I say, as you've put it, beautiful kind of storms out there to look at on satellite imagery, because they're going to have untapped conditions to kind of take full advantage of. So as you can see, once again, this is the statistical percentile, or the statistical average of where we typically see most of our formation when we have a neutral phase ongoing in the Atlantic. So this is going to be very, very viable to keep close in our back pockets as we get into next hurricane season. This past year, 2023, we saw a lot of our formation happen out here with a very northward bias to a lot of our storms. If we have them forming here, even if we do continue to see that northward bias, this is what's likely going to happen. We're going to see more landfalls. We're going to see more major systems impacting our folks in the islands, both the Lesser and Greater Antilles, Central America, and the southeast quadrant of the United States, with a few probably making an easy run through the Gulf of Mexico. These are where we typically see our formations during a cold season, and this is just an average over the last 100 years. And you could see that our red boxes here, 1, 2, and 3, are typically where we see a lot of our systems form up. And during a cold or a neutral phase, we're going to have this really good blocking high out here, driving our systems off to the west-northwest, like so. So we're going to take these systems and transition them up like that. we're going to get ready to cut the live stream here in a second. I just wanted to come up and kind of brief you guys on this, especially after looking at these bad boys, these statistics or these numbers, and then looking at what we have coming over the next couple of years, especially this. That's very concerning. Here very soon, we're going to have a whole new batch of climatology data again, so we can start to discuss that after we get into the new year. But yeah, folks, it looks like we are going to be very, very busy here in the Weather Center as we not only go through next year, but it could possibly be a busy year after that. So if there was any question or any doubt in your mind that this channel was going to be going anywhere, nope. We're here to stay. We're going to actually drop anchor and start looking at doing a lot of homework. Oh yeah, for those of you just joining, I discovered a briefing from Climate Prediction Center in terms of what their ENSO oscillation looks like, and we could possibly be in this La Nina to neutral phase all the way through to 2025, according to their most recent, we'll say, consolidated / ensemble just Nino index. If you look down at the bottom, I explained this during the early portion of this live stream. This is 2023, El Nino. 2024, neutral to a weak La Nina. 2025, we're continuing the trend of a weak La Nina / neutral ENSO pattern, or ENSO neutral. Oh, yeah, no chasing tomorrow. I'm going to be wrapped up in all sorts of family shenanigans. If anything, the only thing that would be worth chasing would be up in the northern plains where they have the blizzard going on. It's just going to be dreary down here in the southeast for quite some time. But there you have it, guys. This was something I wanted to communicate to you all. I was having a conversation with Shawnee on Instagram earlier, and that's what kind of jogged my memory and why I wanted to look at this, and I discovered all this, and that's why I decided to break live. This is also very interesting. This is our 1 and 2 ENSO region just off the coast of South America, and we're already seeing our El Nino start to crash and burn. We're already approaching a neutral phase off the coast of I keep wanting to say South Carolina, South America. And this is also something I'd pulled up earlier. This is a 7-day anomaly change, and if you look through much of the Eastern Pacific, we are starting to see some colder anomalies pop up. And that doesn't mean the water is cold. What this is showing is within 7 days, we've actually had about a 0.4 to a 0.8, maybe in some areas closer to that ENSO 1 and 2 quadrant, down to just below a full degree Charlie decrease. So El Nino is already slowly starting to cave in on itself, which begs the question of when are other people going to start talking about next hurricane season? When are people going to start theorizing that we could possibly see tropical cyclones occurring earlier if we already have very favorable waters, good tropical energy, whether it be in a fashion of a wave, an old frontal boundary, etc., etc.? So yeah, that's the main reason I wanted to break live. I also provided you guys with a little bit of a Christmas message I wanted to wish you. I've been thinking about that all day. I wasn't sure if I was going to make a video, do a short, and I figured I'll go live so we can talk about El Nino a little bit, even though I know a lot of folks out there, the general public, are tired of hearing, Hurricane season, shut up. So, but I thought it was worthwhile bringing this attention with this, how many cyclones. Well, see, that's going to be the difficult part to determine, because there are other variables out there, like whether or not we're going to have lots of dry air, if we're going to have our Saharan dust alive and kicking, just like we saw in 2022. We won't have a really good estimate of what our Atlantic is going to look like until we get to about the April-May timeframe, which I know is cutting it close, but we can start to draw early conclusions depending on how much of a crash we see with El Nino as we approach springtime. If I had to make my own first, preliminary forecast for next year, and this is like as broad of a forecast or a projection that I could provide you guys this early in time, I'm going to go modest. I'm going to say we will probably have between 3 to 5 hurricanes, We will easily hit 15 cyclones altogether, and we're going to have at least 3 bombs next year. I think next year, depending on where we're at, just looking at what our environmental conditions will look like in terms of our ocean oscillations on either side of the continent, I think we're going to very easily hit the 15 mark for total named storms. We're probably going to have 3 big ones. I think we're going to have 3 big ones. My gut says higher. But I don't want to sound like I'm sensationalizing, numbers just based on a gut feeling. If I'm being as scientifically reasonable with you guys, I think 15 named storms is a very easy early guess, and that's my preliminary threshold we will break. I'm not saying that we're only going to get 15. I'm saying the average number I'm thinking we could easily see and break past is 15. I think we're going to have 3 really big hurricanes to worry about next year. We're going to have a total of 15 plus, greater than 15, but there's going to be 3 storms. 3. My gut, like I said, tells me more than that. I should be a little bit more boisterous in my numbers, but I think there's going to be 3. We had 1 this year, Idalia. And I think next year we're going to have 3 disastrous major hurricanes that are just going to we're going to blow people out of the water. And to be continued. Those numbers are going to fluctuate. This is just looking at what our Enzo oscillation is expected to do. I'm going to update those numbers as we go. We'll say quarter to quarter. So next time will probably be sometime around March. And then as we get ready to roll into hurricane season by about May, maybe as we get close to June, I will go ahead and give a final prediction based off of what other things are coming out, I'm predicting 20 named storms, 10 hurricanes, 5 major hurricanes, 2 Cat 5s. Kevin, I actually think that's a pretty reasonable estimate. Same thing with UPM. 15 to 20 storms, 7 to 9 cyclones, 3 to 5 intense storms. I definitely think so. Namez Irez, Merry Christmas. Welcome in. Thank you so much for joining us. By the way, guys, for those of you joining in right now, I mentioned this at the very beginning of the stream, but it was a very awesome instance last night. It was a very inspiring and motivating moment last night. But we were out at the Sharks Underwater Grill at SeaWorld, and a young lady by the name of Natalia was walking by the table with, I would assume, her family and friends, and immediately points, Nazario, right? Weather Center Nazario, and we all got all kind of hyped up. I watch your YouTube all the time, blah, blah, blah. I got to get a picture with you. So that was a beautiful moment. I had my night made when that happened yesterday. And it definitely, I will openly admit it, definitely reinvigorated that drive to want to give you guys as much content as possible. I definitely needed that little bit of a wake-up call to, realize that I got to stop focusing on what's happening around this channel, what's happening outside of the Weather Center, and just focus on that specifically. You guys tune in to listen to what I have to forecast, what I have to analyze, and you guys entrust me. So why am I over here sweating what everybody else is doing, I need to focus on you. I need to focus on us and our community. And I definitely needed that. I'm so glad that little bit of a humble moment happened. I'll admit, I had a bit of a Ron Burgundy moment. I guess you can say I'm kind of a big deal, but I'm just kidding. No, definitely not. But it was definitely a really warm feeling to be recognized. Not for the sake of being recognized, but wow, it goes to show who's watching and who cares. And there goes my battery. I just lost my battery. So don't be surprised if my camera suddenly goes out on the live stream. It's going to freeze. And at least this time, it's frozen in a much more pleasant thumbnail fashion if you guys wanted to meme that. But, I do enjoy rambling. I ramble on about all things weather to you guys. And so that's just a little fun fact I wanted to share with you all. And I thank her, and I hope that she sees this, and I hope she continues to tune in. But huge shout out to her, because it was more than just a recognizing moment for me. It was more of a moment of, dang, okay, this is the reason why I do this. This is the reason why I do what I do and why I love weather and why I love to communicate it so much. And I can definitely tell you guys, it's really bolstered my spirit, and I'm ready to continue to dig in not only to my degree work, but also find all of my old weather material from my time in the Air Force and continue to digest all this new stuff I learned while I'm working as a naval aerographer as well. So needless to say, I'm just going to continue to be a weather sponge as we go forward in time, and I cannot wait to see what 2024 throws at us, because you best believe that we're going to be here in the trenches together working through it. So it's going to be a good time. It's going to be a very, very blessed year for all of us. We're going to have a lot of fun in a good way. We're going to be going bare knuckle against Mother Nature and trying to, actually, I'm not even going to say against her. We're going to be working with Mother Nature. We're going to work with her, and we're trying to get on the same page so then we can prepare for what it is that she throws at us. How about that? We're not going to make it about conflict. We're going to make it about resolution. We're going to come to a resolution with Mother Nature and try to get on the same memo as her before it's too late. So hopefully she finds the channel one more time. Hopefully she can join us. I wish that she would drop me a line on Instagram or on TikTok or whatever, and the same goes for you guys. If you do not follow me on those platforms, I would highly, highly, highly encourage that you do so. Drop me a line on there, because I'm definitely trying to bolster those numbers and hopefully go together next year and bounce back and forth from TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and just create a giant community, as well as X now, Twitter. Create a huge weather network amongst all you guys and everybody else out there. And yes, Kevin, I agree. I would love to do a collaboration with Ryan Hall. I would honestly, everybody out there I'd love to collab with. It's just very discouraging that a lot of people don't seem to be open to collaborations. It's very bizarre, because in Air Force weather, we were very, very keen on collaborating with other squadrons, with other units. Brian, that's the X. It's just my username, all put together, WX Center Nazario. But I think you should check out Nathan's hypothetical 2024 hurricane season animation. Oh, I think I've seen it. I think I've seen that already. But definitely rewatch this video, because there's a lot of good information that we just dug out, and we're going to revisit this information as we move along over the next few months. Yeah, I don't know why they renamed it X. I really do miss Twitter. Twitter just seemed so much better. X, I feel like a lot of people are probably getting in trouble at work because they're putting in the wrong X, if you catch my drift. So, but alrighty, guys, we're going to go ahead and start getting ready to close out the stream. To kind of wrap it up into a nice bundle, we have a very, very interesting next 2 hurricane seasons to kind of look out for. Next 2 hurricane seasons, because according to Climate Prediction Center and what NOAA is thinking, this El Nino is going to crash and burn by the time we get into April to June of next year. And we could possibly see a favorable Enso oscillation all the way through to 2025. That's the kind of the cliff notes of this video here. And I'll even pull it back over, even though I know I'm frozen. I'll go ahead and turn my camera off so you guys can see. This is what Climate Prediction Center is thinking is going to happen with our oscillation over the next few years. We're going to drop down out of this moderate to somewhat strong El Nino and go right into a nice little happy medium between a weak La Nina and a neutral pattern. And if that isn't enough for you, let's go back to the numbers. And this goes all the way into the beginning of 2025. I'll show you guys this is 23. And then right about here is where we get into 2024. And then right about here is when we get into 2025. And you can see where these little negative numbers are. And even right about here is what I was saying earlier. Once we get into April, May, we're going to start really approaching that neutral ENSO. It's any time you get into about a 1.2 to a 1.5 is where El Nino becomes a lot more present out there in the environment. So right about here and forward, we're just looking at the atmosphere and the oceans becoming very, very conducive for much more organized and structurally sound tropical entities out there. And we'll come back at a later date to discuss exactly what this means as we go through time, because 2023 gave us some very, very good red flags that we really need to start scrutinizing on a higher level and discussing a couple theories that should be announced across the meteorological community to the general public, just so we know what we're getting ourselves into. But That'll come in time. That'll come in time. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and close out this live stream. Folks, even though we only have a very small percentage of you guys still watching the channel these days, for everybody who has come and gone, for all the folks who have newly subscribed, to all the folks who've stuck around since our Hurricane Idalia coverage, and the folks who have even unsubscribed. You were a subscriber for a little while, you showed support until you know, I guess got your fill. Maybe you'll come back when it's time. But that remains to be seen. Regardless, all of you guys are a wonderful gift to this weather channel, the Weather Center. You guys have been a phenomenal audience since we started up in August of this year, middle of August, and it's been a very, very marvelous last few months with you guys, and I couldn't be more grateful for everybody who's joining me in my corner and in our corner, in our community, rolling in to 2024, because boy, do I think we're going to have to stay on our toes and, as they say in the boxing world, roll with the punches as we continue to move forward in time and see exactly how much Mother Nature and the atmosphere is going to evolve as we just continue through these very volatile seasons. So Merry Christmas to each and every single one of you out there. Even if you're not watching, just know in spirit that I'm wishing you a Merry Christmas. I really genuinely appreciate every single one of you guys, every individual one of you, not a collective everyone, every individual person that has ever tuned into this channel. I sincerely, sincerely thank you for all the support that you've given us, and we are not going anywhere. We will continue to work hard. I will continue to refine my meteorological skills, my speaking skills, my communication skills, everything you want to put on the table that makes a good weather channel and a good content creator, because we are going to try to move in unison with what Mother Nature has in store for us. She already knows, just like God up there already knows what's coming. He already has 2024 planned out. He already has the hurricane season planned out. He has every single storm, every single rain, every single gust of wind planned and mapped out. And it's up to us to work feverishly to kind of put the puzzle pieces together a la Nicolas Cage, National Treasure. But the bottom line, Merry, Merry Christmas. I will probably see you guys again with my camera charged and with another couple updates, if not segments or live streams between now and the new year. And we're all going to rock together as we roll into 2024 on as positive and a high note as we physically and emotionally can. All right, guys. So Merry Christmas to all, and I hope you do have a great night. We'll talk to you again soon. Drop a comment in the comments section below if you have any questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, or if you wanted to shoot the breeze. Feel free to always drop me a line on Instagram or TikTok, and now officially Twitter/X. We'll see you guys again very soon. This is Weather Center Nazario, signing out.